All rise. The 2021 Iowa High School Mock Trial Championship Court is now in session to hear the case of Tory Rhodes versus Trenius Incorporated. The Honorable Justice Thomas Waterman of the Iowa Supreme Court presiding. Our scoring judges today are the Honorable Judge Paul Allers of the Iowa Court of Appeals from Fort Dodge, Iowa. The Honorable Judge Sharon Greer of the Iowa Court of Appeals from Marshalltown, Iowa. President of the Iowa State Bar Association, Gary Snur of Fort Dodge, Iowa. President of the Iowa State Bar Association, Young Lawyers Division, Tori Cuellar of Bondurant, Iowa. And David Dutton of Waterloo, representing the Iowa chapter of the American Board of Trial Advocates, ABOTA. Justice Waterman, the courtroom is yours to conduct pretrial matters.
Thank you, Lauren. Congratulations, teams, on making the final round. Your hard work and collaboration has paid off. I'm honored to preside with such an impressive panel of scoring judges today. And before we begin with opening statements, I want to remind you, as you presumably already know, that this proceeding, the final round, is recorded. And I understand that you will introduce yourselves. Let's begin with the plaintiff team.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Lee, and I, along with my co-counsel, will be representing the plaintiff in today's case. May I introduce my team?
Please do.
My co-counsel today will be Britt Bowersox, Abigail Green, and Samantha Semmelroth. Our witnesses today will be Jefferson Challenger as Taylor Kowalczyk, Miyako Coffey as Hayes Hamilton, and Ava Challenger as Tory Rhodes.
Defense counsel, please introduce your team.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Harper Deniston, and I, along with my co-counsel, will be representing the defendant in today's trial. May I introduce my co-counsel?
Please do.
Thank you. Julianne Barry-Stoltz.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Catherine Gertis.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
And Shoshana Henley.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Okay.
I'd also like to introduce our witnesses in today's trial. Callie Stanier as Dylan Tintreach.
Good day to you, Your Honors.
Madeline Hellwig as Pat Towne.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
And Johanna Kopelman as Bernie Dorn.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
I'd also like to introduce our tech assistant, Toby Epstein.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
And our timekeeper, Ananya Albert Bueller.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Great to see all of you. Let me remind the timekeepers, rather than if somebody goes over time and we're all relying on the timekeepers to keep careful track, please let us know verbally rather than a chat that we might overlook. Counsel, any other pretrial matters before we go with opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor. May I take a moment to screen share?
Of course.
We ask that you choose the side-by-side mode as shown here. And we also ask that you increase the size of the speaker window. Next, I would like to draw the court's attention to a few stipulations. Stipulation 10 which states that the cause of death of Star Rhodes was determined to be cardiac arrest and complications from being struck by lightning. And Stipulation 13, which states that post-mortem diffusion of alcohol from the gut can falsely elevate the blood alcohol concentration. We have no objection to the other side's visual aids as we have reviewed them before this pretrial.
Okay.
As this is a bench trial, may we screen share our exhibits before we ask foundational questions so that the court can see what the witness is referring to?
You may.
And we ask to reserve all remaining time from our closing argument for rebuttal.
Very good. Anything else from the plaintiffs?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Let's hear from defense counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to alert the court that we will be using demonstratives in opening and closing, and we have shared those with the plaintiff.
Okay.
And we'd also like to draw the court's attention to a number of stipulations on pages 9, 10, and 11 of the case material. We'd like to apologize in advance as they are a bit lengthy. But first, stipulation 11, which states, the September 16th, 2018 toxicology report shows that Star Rhodes had a 0.14% blood alcohol content at the time of death. A 0.14 BAC causes gross motor impairment, lack of physical control, and a major loss of balance. It also impairs reflexes and reaction time. Judgment and perception are impaired. Next, stipulation 17, which states that the ambulance record of Star Rhodes, Exhibit 2, was prepared by Aaron Jones and was based upon his personal knowledge and was prepared at or about the time of the event stated therein. The ambulance record is kept in the course of regularly conducted business of the Schutz Ambulance Service and is the regular practice of Schutz Ambulance Service to make such records. The ambulance record, Exhibit 2, does not need to be introduced to the custodian of the record. Okay. Next, stipulation 19, which states that Exhibits 6, 7, and 8 were prepared and are maintained by the National Weather Service, a component of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is an operating unit of the U.S. Department of Commerce. The documents set forth historical weather data and forecasts, which are matters the agency has a duty to report as imposed by law. Exhibits 6, 7, and 8 do not need to be introduced through the custodian of the record. Next, stipulation 20, which states that Exhibit 9 is a compilation of text alert messages prepared by Weather First based upon information obtained through the National Weather Service compilation and is prepared at or about the time of the event stated therein. The compilation is kept in the course of regularly conducted business of the Weather First and is the regular practice of Weather First to make such records. The compilation does not need to be introduced to the custodian of the record. And lastly, we have jury instruction 15, which states that an expert witness shall not be tendered to court prior to introduction of the opinions and conclusions of such expert witness. At this time, we have nothing further for pretrial.
Very good. Plaintiff's counsel, are you ready for opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. But before I begin, may I take a moment to screen share my demonstratives?
You may.
May I proceed?
Please do.
May it please the court, opposing counsel. On September 3rd, 2018, a young school teacher named Star Rhodes went to a concert but never returned. Why? Let's go back to 2017. The defendant, Trunius Incorporated, decides to go on a big concert tour. For one stop on that tour, they negotiate a contract with an outdoor venue in Des Moines. The contract makes one thing crystal clear. Trunius Incorporated has the sole discretion to cancel or delay the concert in cases of severe weather. Fast forward to 2018, when the Des Moines concert is scheduled to be held. A week before the concert, a weather system in central Iowa is producing unusual and excessive lightning. These weather warnings are passed to Trunius corporate representatives. Weather issues are again reported the day before the concert and again the day of the concert. Trunius Incorporated makes no changes to the concert schedule. Thousands of fans arrive at the outdoor venue the night of the concert. 23 minutes before the start of the concert, the National Weather Service issues a warning for intense lightning. But Tronius Incorporated does nothing with this information. Moments before the band is set to take the stage, a downpour begins and lightning begins to strike. The crowd scrambles to take cover. One fan, Star Rhodes, is waiting for his wife to pull his car around when he is struck and killed by lightning. With power comes responsibility. Tronius Incorporated had power. It had the power to draw thousands of fans to its outdoor concerts. It had the power to negotiate contracts, giving it the final say on when those concerts occurred. We are here today because Tronius Incorporated failed to use its power responsibly. Your Honor, today we will prove by the preponderance of the evidence that Tronius Incorporated was negligent and that its negligence was a proximate cause of the death of Star Rhodes. We will do this through the testimony of 3 witnesses. First, we will call Taylor Kowalczyk, general manager of the outdoor venue. He will testify to the terms of the contract and the power that it gave Tronius Incorporated. Second, we will be calling Hayes Hamilton, former concert promoter of Tronius Incorporated. She will testify to the weather warnings that she received and the actions that she took with them. And finally, we will be calling Tori Rhodes, spouse of Star Rhodes, to the stand. She will testify that this tragedy occurred on their 1-year wedding anniversary. With power comes responsibility. Star Rhodes was caught in a lightning storm because Tronius Incorporated chose not to cancel or delay the concert. That is why, at the end of today's trial, we will ask that you find Tronius Incorporated liable. Thank you.
Very good. Let's now hear the opening statement from defense counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I proceed, I would like to request that your screen is in split screen mode so that you're able to see myself and my demonstrative equally. May I proceed?
Please do.
Your Honors, opposing counsel, may it please the court. We have just heard the plaintiff tell you a story that points the finger directly at my client. But that story ignores the true facts of what happened that night and what actually led to the unfortunate tragedy of Star Rhodes' death. Today, the defense will build you a different picture, one of irresponsibility, recklessness, and clouded judgment. One that by the end of today's trial will prove it was the negligence of others, not the defendant, that led to Star Rhodes' death. Dylan Tintreach is the lead singer for the band Tronius, an Irish rock band. You will hear that the life of a rock star is far from glamorous. Instead, it requires a lot of hard work from a lot of different people. Dylan is a musician, not a business person or entrepreneur, so they hired Hayes Hamilton to promote and organize their shows. Pat Towne was hired as director of security. On September 3rd, the band was looking forward to playing at the SOP, an outdoor venue in Des Moines. Hayes negotiated this performance with Taylor Kowalczyk, the manager for the venue. These negotiations resulted in a written contract creating duties for both parties, including responsibility for any safety concerns during the show. They also established a chain of command to monitor any weather-related issues. But Hayes demonstrated clouded judgment by ignoring the chain of command. Taylor allowed money to cloud his judgment by failing to conduct an orderly evacuation of the venue, resulting in chaos for the fans and the loss of Star Rhodes' life. But unfortunately, the night of the concert, Star Rhodes was also negligent. Star was celebrating and drinking. When storm clouds started to gather, Star made the decision to stay at the concert. And when conditions got dangerous, Starr himself decided to take cover under the tree that tragically led to his death. Your Honors, today the plaintiff will fail to meet their burden of proof. They cannot prove by preponderance of the evidence that the band was negligent the night of the concert. Instead, the evidence will establish the negligence of Starr Rhodes, Taylor Kowalczyk, and D-Taze Hamilton led to Starr Rhodes' death. Today, the defense will call 3 witnesses. Bernie Dorn, a weather expert who will testify to the sufficient information leading up to the concert. Pat Towne, Director of Security, will testify to D-Taze Hamilton's failure to pass along crucial information that would have allowed the band to cancel the show. And lastly, you will hear from Dylan Tintreach, the lead singer for the band. Dylan will testify to the lack of awareness of the dangerous weather conditions the night of the concert. As you listen to the trial today, consider these questions. Do the actions of Dylan Tintreach and the band Trenius outweigh the clouded judgment of D-Taze Hamilton, Taylor Kowalczyk, and Starr Rhodes? Who in this case had the duty to prevent Starr Rhodes' death? And who demonstrated clouded judgment? Your Honors, by the end of today's trial, we will ask you to return the only just and proper verdict. We will ask you to find Dylan Tintreach and the band Trenius were not negligent and are not liable. Thank you.
Plaintiff's counsel, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Taylor Kowalczyk to the stand.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
There you are. Please proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the court.
My name is Taylor Kowalczyk, Kowalczyk.
What do you do for a living?
I am currently the general manager of the Schneer Outdoor Pavilion. It is more commonly referred to as the SOP.
Were you present for the events that occurred in the evening hours of September 3rd, 2018, the night of the Trenius concert?
Yes, I was.
Before we get into those events, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your background. What are your duties as the general manager of the SOP?
I am responsible for the day-to-day operations of the venue. I'm responsible for working out the event management, the operations, and the security of the venue.
Do you work directly with the performers that perform at the venue?
I do. I negotiate the contracts and agreements with the performers.
You just mentioned negotiating contracts. Did you negotiate such a contract with Trenius, the band in today's case?
I did.
Counsel, I'll be referring to Exhibit 4. Your Honor, may I display Exhibit 4?
You may.
Can the court see Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalczyk, do you recognize Exhibit 4?
Yes, I do.
What is Exhibit 4?
It is a copy of the live performance agreement that Trenius and I agreed upon for their performance on September 3rd, 2018.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of that contract?
Yes, it is.
And was this made and kept in the regular course of your business?
It is.
Your Honor, the plaintiff now offers Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
When was this contract signed?
September of 2017.
And who signed it?
Well, at our venue, the policy is to have the performer directly sign the contract instead of an agent or a promoter. The lead singer of Trenius, Dylan Tintreach, signed the contract on September 24th, 2017, and I signed it 4 days later on September 28th.
According to the contract, who has the authority to cancel or delay the concert in cases of severe weather?
Paragraph number 8 on the agreement states that the band reserves the right to cancel the performance or to delay the performance for sufficient time to correct problems if, in its sole discretion, the performance area is inadequate or dangerous, If weather conditions make performance dangerous or damaging to equipment and the SOP has not provided adequate shelter, or if the SOP has otherwise failed to meet the terms of this contract.
Mr. Kowalczyk, what does sole discretion mean to you?
Well, this means that the band has the authority to make the final say on their concert schedule.
Now I would like to talk a little bit more about your duties as the general manager of the SOP as it pertains to the weather. Does the SOP have any personnel in charge of monitoring the weather?
We do. Before every event that the venue hosts, I identify one specific person who we call the weather watcher.
What does the weather watcher do?
Well, their job is to monitor the weather and report information that they get to the weather information chain of command that we set up.
Now I would like to talk more about your preparation for the night of the concert. What kind of steps did you take in order to monitor the weather on that day?
Well, in the morning, I decided to set up the chain of command. I made myself the weather watcher.
Who came next to the chain of command?
Next was the band's promoter, Hayes Hamilton.
And who was after the promoter?
The band itself, or in this case, the security director, Towne.
Did you provide the band with any other means of monitoring the weather?
I did. I showed the security director how to operate our state-of-the-art Doppler radar monitors. Those were located in the promoter's office.
Did you provide the promoter with any notifications about weather issues during the day of the concert?
Yes. On the day of the concert, the National Weather Service issued a thunderstorm advisory, but they continued to push this back.
So what did you do with that warning?
Well, I suggested to the promoter that they cancel and reschedule, or at least delay the performance.
Why did you do that?
Well, the weather was moving slowly, and I knew that it would still be a threat come concert time.
What happened right before the concert was set to start?
At 7:37 p.m., about 23 minutes before the start of the concert, the National Weather Service issued a thunderstorm advisory with intense lightning.
Did you pass this weather notification on to the promoter?
I did. I told them that the weather was very bad and that they should just cancel their performance and reschedule it for another day.
Did the band ever come on stage to perform?
No, they did not. I was on stage just a few minutes before they were supposed to start performing, and that's when the storm blew in.
Were there any casualties due to the storm?
Unfortunately, yes. I soon learned that even after all of the warnings I had passed on to the band, Star Rhodes was tragically killed after being struck by lightning.
Mr. Kowalczyk, did Trunius ever decide to cancel or delay the concert?
While they had the power and the responsibility to do so, they did not.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination,
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
please do.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kowalczyk. My name is Shoshana Hemley, and I'm going to be asking you some questions today. I'd like to start off by talking about the contract between Trunius and SOP. Now, even though you had concerns about the weather, you never canceled the show yourself.
No, in cases of severe weather, the contract strictly prohibits me from doing so.
However, there was no language in the contract prohibiting you from informing the fans about the weather.
There was not, no.
Nor was there a language in the contract that prohibited you from preparing your staff for an evacuation.
There was not.
Permission to share my screen, Your Honor.
You may.
Let the record reflect that I'm now sharing a copy of what has been previously marked and admitted into evidence as Exhibit 4. Let me now draw your attention to Section 12. This lists several reasons why the SOP would have the right to cancel, including a force majeure event, which is any major event beyond either party's reasonable control. Is this correct, Mr. Kowalczyk?
That's correct.
And this storm was in neither party's reasonable control?
Objection, Your Honor. This question calls for speculation.
Response, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe this is a simple opinion of whether or not Mr. Kowalczyk could control a storm. I think he would have the personal knowledge of whether or not he could do that.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
Counsel is asking my witness to testify to if either party could reasonably contain the weather. This is not only mere speculation, but speculation on behalf of many people and many factors that he could not possibly foresee.
Objection overruled.
So this storm was in neither party's reasonable control, correct, Mr. Kowalczyk?
Yes.
Moving on, I'd like to talk about the day of the performance. Now, you had concerns that the weather would be a threat during the show.
Well, earlier in the week, there had been some forecasts that there would be some storms, yes.
You wanted to delay the show.
I did suggest that to the promoter, yes.
The promoter being DT's Hamilton, who, in your opinion, you believed to be filtering the information you gave her when talking to the band.
I don't understand your question, ma'am.
You believed that Mrs. Hamilton was filtering information you gave her when talking to the band?
I do, yes.
Now, let the record reflect, permission to share my screen, Your Honor.
Granted.
Let the record reflect I am now sharing a copy of what has been previously marked as Exhibit 9. Now, at 7:37 p.m., 23 minutes prior to the start of the concert.
Objection, Your Honor. This is assuming facts outside of evidence. This exhibit has not been entered yet.
Okay. Counsel, do you want to lay some foundation?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd be happy to. Now, Mr. Kowalczyk, this is the weather alert that you received that you testified earlier to you having knowledge of at 7:37 p.m. on September 3rd, 2018.
I did receive a weather alert at 7:37 p.m.
Pursuant to the stipulations outlined in pretrial, I now move to admit Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Hearsay and lack of foundation.
Overruled.
So at 7:37 p.m., 23 minutes prior to the start of the concert, you received a National Weather Service alert indicating intense lightning for south and west of Des Moines.
I did.
Now, you relayed this information to DTAs.
Yes, I did.
From your observations, she seemed upset.
I did observe that, yes.
She told you that the band's schedule was too full.
Objection, Your Honor. She's asking my witness to testify to hearsay.
Response, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, this is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, simply being offered to show the effect on Mr. Kowalczyk, as well as the fact that this is a present sense impression that Ms. Hamilton believed the band's schedule to be already full.
Any further response?
No, Your Honor.
Overruled. Proceed.
So Ms. Hamilton told you that the band's schedule was already too full.
She did.
She came back from telling the band this information in what seemed to you from your observations in under 2 minutes.
I don't know the actual time, but it wasn't too long.
And told you that the show would go on.
Yes, that's correct.
She said, it's just a bit of rain, we can play.
She did tell me that.
Now, you never directly told the band about this weather concern, correct?
Well, no, I set up the weather information chain of command so that weather that I received would go to Ms. Hamilton, who would tell Pat Towne, and then it would eventually get communicated to the band.
But this chain of command wasn't in the contract.
It was not.
Now, in your own personal belief, you also feel that if you had moved to evacuate at this moment, there would have been sufficient time.
Objection, Your Honor. She's asking my witness to testify to speculation.
Response, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that this is admissible pursuant to Rule 701, where I'm simply asking for opinion testimony by a lay witness, which is admissible if it is in their own perception and is going to clear the understanding of their testimony, as well as not based in technical or scientific knowledge.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
She's not asking my witness to testify to observations or his opinions on those observations. She's asking him to speculate all the way forward to unforeseen circumstances.
Let me hear the question again.
In your own opinion, had you moved to evacuate at this moment, there would have been sufficient time.
I'll allow it as a lay opinion.
In your own
Ye-
opinion, Mr. Kowalczyk, there would have been sufficient time to evacuate.
I believe so.
However, you did not move to evacuate.
It was not my decision, ma'am.
You didn't use your jumbotrons or your public address system.
Well, no, if the band had shown any concern that they were going to cancel or postpone the show, I would have displayed the correct directions to do so.
You didn't inform the fans about the weather.
No, again, if the band had told me that they were planning to evacuate the venue and they were not performing, I would have done so.
You didn't prepare your staff for the possibility of an evacuation.
No, I would not do so if the band was not planning to evacuate.
Now, if you canceled and you were wrong, you would have had to pay Trenius a $285,000 performance fee.
I guess if the SOP cancels, then we usually have to pay the band the performance fee.
But if Trenius canceled, you wouldn't owe them a dime.
That's correct, ma'am.
As general manager of the SOP, you were in charge of crisis management, crowd control, and evacuations.
That's part of my responsibility.
But there was no crowd control.
I did all I could by telling the crowd to take cover, as during storms, umbrellas or tents can become very dangerous debris. So I told the fans that they should take cover, and I tried to control them as much as I could that night.
You didn't follow your standard evacuation procedure.
Not that night, no.
And there was no crisis management.
I'm not sure what you mean by crisis management, ma'am.
You didn't follow any management of the crisis following evacuation plans.
I'm sure if there was any problem, then Trenius would have told me to cancel the performance, and I would have followed the proper procedure.
And at no point did you cancel?
No, it was not my decision.
So you let money cloud your judgment?
No, I did not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
On cross-examination, you were asked about your authority to cancel or delay the concert. So, Mr. Kowalczyk, what was stopping the SOP from canceling or delaying the concert on their own?
Well, in any other circumstance, the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion would have the responsibility to cancel, but under this specific circumstance, the only person who had the control over their concert schedule was Trenius.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
You may step down. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we have a moment to set up our Zoom for the next witness?
Of course. Okay. Please raise your right hand. And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the court.
Hayes Hamilton, Hamilton.
What do you do for a living?
I am a concert promoter.
Are you familiar with Trenius Incorporated?
Yes, ma'am. I've worked with Trenius for years.
We are in court today based on the events that occurred on September 3rd, 2018. Were you with the band on this day?
Yes, ma'am. We were in Des Moines, Iowa.
Before we get to that day, I'd like to provide the court with some background on your history with Trenius Incorporated. When did it start?
About a dozen years ago or so, that was when Dylan Tentrich and the rest of the band formed together in Chicago.
Were you ever hired by Trenius Incorporated?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were you hired to do?
What didn't I do for them? I mean, I booked their venues, handled their tickets, negotiated their contracts. Honey, I even booked them their hotels and venues.
Did you book the venue for the September 3rd concert in Des Moines?
Yes, ma'am. Everything from that to negotiating their contract as well.
When did those contract negotiations take place?
September of 2017.
And what was your role in those contract negotiations?
Well, my job was to make sure that they had their usual outdoor venue deal, which is a $285,000 performance fee, a no cancellation clause within 30 days without the band's consent, and the band has sole discretion to cancel or delay the performance in regarding weather.
What happened at the end of the contract negotiations?
I would send the final copy to Dylan Tentrich, the lead singer, so then they could sign it, look over it, ask for any changes or questions as well.
Did Dylan Tentrich ask to make any changes to the contract?
No, ma'am.
Now, let's move on to the day of the concert, September 3rd. You said you were with the band on this day. What were you doing?
Well, I was busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest that day. I mean, on top of everything else that I usually do on the day of the concert, I was also acting as the go-between for the SOP and the band.
Describe your role as the go-between for weather communication between the venue and the band.
Well, the SOP general manager, Taylor Kowalczyk, would inform me of any potentially hazardous weather, and then I would pass that information along to Pat Towne.
Why would you pass the information on to Pat Towne?
Well, that was protocol. That's what the band agreed to.
Describe what weather information you provided to Pat Towne leading up to the performance.
Well, on Sunday, September 2nd, the day before the show, I let Pat Towne know of a severe thunderstorm warning going through the area.
When was the next time?
That was on the day of the concert. There were 4 times that I notified Pat Towne.
Would you tell us about the first time you notified Pat Towne?
Yes, ma'am. At 4 o'clock, I told Pat Towne of some bad weather popping up out of nowhere about 60 miles west of Des Moines.
What about the second time?
At 5:30, I notified Pat Towne of some storm advisories.
Would you tell us about the third time?
That was at 6:30. I notified Pat Towne that those storm advisories were being extended.
And finally, would you tell us about the fourth time you notified Pat Towne of the weather on the day of the performance?
Yes, ma'am. I told Pat Towne of the National Weather Service's warning for lightning for 7:37 p.m.
Did you attempt to provide weather communications to anyone else?
Well, these advisories got me more nervous than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. So I did go to Dylan Tentrich's dressing room, fixing to discuss the weather one-on-one.
Why did you want to discuss the weather with Dylan Tentrich one-on-one?
Well, the band ultimately has the power to cancel or delay, so I just wanted to go straight to the horse's mouth.
And how did that go?
Well, Pat Towne wouldn't even let me through. That really did my pickle. As if I wouldn't go to Dylan Tentrich if I didn't think it was important.
We've all heard about what happened later in the night. Were there any consequences?
Well, there was for Little Miss Scapegoat here.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the band stopped paying me. Then they threw me under the bus and fired me altogether.
Has any of that impacted your testimony today?
No, ma'am. The truth's the truth.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Hello, Ms. Hamilton. My name is Catherine Gertis, and I'll be asking you a few questions today. Now, you own your own company, DT's Jams.
Yes, ma'am.
And in 2018, Trenius was one of your clients.
That's true.
Though you didn't work for the band, you booked their shows at this time.
Yes, I did. I did a lot of things for them when I was working with them.
The September 3rd concert was part of Trenius's 2018 Irish Summer Tour.
That's correct.
And this tour ran for 2 months, from July to August.
That's true.
And in this 2-month period, you booked 25 shows for the band
I did.
in 20 different cities,
Yes, ma'am.
with several back-to-back engagements.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a very heavy schedule.
Yes, it is. And as such a popular group that they are, they can handle it.
And Trenius was at the end of this schedule on September 3rd.
That's true.
Now, around 4 p.m., I'd like to talk more about exactly what happened at the September 3rd concert. Prior to the show, you were involved in establishing a chain of command for reporting hazardous weather conditions.
That's correct.
And just to be clear, this chain of command went Taylor, you, Pat.
That's correct.
And if you failed to pass on accurate information, there was no way that the band could make a decision.
That's true.
Around 4 p.m. the day of the concert, Taylor alerted you to some bad weather that had popped up around 60 miles west of Des Moines.
That's correct. I then
Lightning
notified
was
Pat
observed.
Towne of this.
Lightning was observed in this storm,
Yes, ma'am.
but you didn't think it seemed like a big deal.
Well, no, ma'am, as this storm was planning to pass through before the end of the night.
So you didn't suggest to the band that they delay or cancel the concert.
No, as we had all talked about it, but that's not what the band wanted.
Later in the day, Ms. Hamilton, Taylor reported worsening conditions,
That's correct.
but you still weren't convinced the weather would become a real threat.
Well, no, ma'am, as long as the weather had not gotten worse from that point, but obviously it had.
The forecasts around 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. were only advisories and would expire well before the show.
That's correct.
You still told Pat Towne, though.
I did.
And what you said to her was, if it was my call, I would play come rain or shine, as long as there wasn't any serious threat.
That's correct, as obviously the threats had gotten worse over the night, so the situation had changed.
So at no point did you recommend to the band that they delay or cancel the concert.
No, ma'am, as that power lies with the band and it is their decision.
In your opinion, Ms. Hamilton, there just wasn't enough room in the tour to reschedule the show.
Well, of course, we did end up rescheduling, so that wasn't the problem, but that was my opinion at the time.
After you told Pat Towne, if it was my call, I would play come rain or shine, as long as there wasn't any serious threat, the weather kept getting worse.
Yes, ma'am.
Around 7:30 p.m., Taylor alerted you to a warning for intense lightning west of Des Moines.
That's correct.
And you claim you told Pat Towne of this weather report.
Yes, ma'am, I did tell Pat Towne.
And after your conversation with Pat, you returned and told Taylor that the show would go on.
Yes, as the band still hadn't made a decision to cancel.
You said, it's only rain, we can play.
Yes, because the band still wanted to play. They hadn't made a decision.
As to your conversation with Pat Towne, no one witnessed you two speaking.
No, ma'am, it was just us.
So whether it even happened, it's your word against hers.
Well, that's correct, if you put it that way.
Let's talk a little bit more about your word, Miss Hamilton. You have some good reasons to blame this on the band.
Well, I wouldn't say blaming it on anyone. However, it was the band's power and decision to cancel, and they ultimately did not.
Let's talk about your relationship with the band. After the September 3rd concert, you were fired as their promoter for the remaining shows of their tour.
That's correct.
So you lost a big client.
That's correct.
And with that, of course, comes losing a big source of income.
While they are a big band, I also have plenty of other big clients, ma'am.
But still, you lost money.
That's correct.
And you don't think that's fair.
While I am disappointed in their decision to fire me, it is what it is.
That's a yes, isn't it, Miss Hamilton? You think you were unfairly fired?
Yes.
You think Trunias just needed a scapegoat?
Yes, ma'am.
And that Pat Towne should have been the one to be fired?
Yes, ma'am, as I did do my job that night.
You're even currently in litigation with the band over fees for concerts you promoted for them.
That's true.
There's a lot of bad blood between you and the band.
You know, I go between bad blood and just pure disappointment.
You're angry with them, aren't you, Miss Hamilton?
No, ma'am. Disappointed would be a better word.
And your anger with the band is clouding your judgment.
No, ma'am.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please do.
On cross-examination, you were asked about suggesting canceling or delaying the concert. Who had the ultimate power to make that decision?
The band, ma'am.
You were also asked about bad blood between you and Trunias. How are things going with your business since you and Trunias ended your relationship?
I still have many clients that I work with that now that I don't work with Trunias, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very good. You may step down. And let's call your next witness.
Your Honor, before I proceed, may I have a moment to prepare my exhibits?
Of course.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Tory Rhodes to the stand.
Very good. Ms. Rhodes, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. You may proceed with the examination.
Please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the court.
Tory Rhodes, Rhodes.
Where do you live?
I'm originally from South Philadelphia, but my husband Star and I moved to Des Moines a few years ago.
Were you at the Trunias concert on September 3rd, 2018?
I was.
Why were you at the concert?
My husband Star and I were celebrating our 1-year wedding anniversary. Then later that night, he was struck by lightning.
Are you prepared to tell the court about the events that occurred on September 3rd, 2018?
I'll do my best.
Before we discuss that, I would like to learn more about your relationship with Star Rhodes. How did you meet Star?
Star and I met in June of 2015 in Chicago. We were studying to become teachers.
Could you briefly describe your relationship with your husband?
Star was the love of my life. We taught together for 2 years, then decided to keep teaching together. Then on September 3rd of 2017, we got married.
Now, I'd like to discuss What happened on the night of the concert? What did you do before attending the concert?
Star and I had a relaxing morning. We took a walk by the lake and went to the farmer's market. Then in the evening, we had a leisurely dinner together with some wine.
What did you observe about the weather during the day before attending the concert?
I guess there were a few clouds in the sky, but it wasn't anything scary looking. And the forecast for that day only called for a slight chance of storms.
Where was the Tronias concert?
It was at the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion.
When did you arrive at the pavilion for the concert?
Star and I got there at about 6:30. Then we parked and went to go claim good seats on the lawn.
Counsel, I will now be referring to Exhibit 1. Your Honor, may I display Exhibit 1?
You may.
Can the court see Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Do you recognize Exhibit 1?
I do.
What is Exhibit 1?
It's a copy of the map that shows the seating for the Trenias concert at the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the layout of the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion?
Yes, it is.
We now offer Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Could you show the court where you were parked?
Star and I parked the car in the direction that the red arrow was pointing.
Could you show the court where you were seated for the concert?
In the center of the lawn, there's a dark gray area that's surrounded by a yellow box, and that's approximately where Star and I sat.
What did you do after arriving at the concert?
We sat and waited for the concert to start. Then at about 7:15, Star went and bought a cocktail from a vendor's tent.
What did you observe about the weather at this time?
There were some clouds in the sky, but we weren't worried about them.
Why were you unconcerned about the clouds?
Well, we figured that if there was any danger, someone from the band would warn us.
What happened next?
At about 7:45, we heard thunder and saw lightning way off in the distance, but there wasn't a drop of rain.
What happened after you saw the lightning?
About 15 minutes after that, it was 8 p.m. and Trenias was supposed to come out on stage to perform, but they didn't. And that's when it started to downpour.
Could you describe the scene at this time?
Mayhem is the only word to describe what it was like. People were yelling and pushing and shoving, trying to get to their cars, and the pavilions were filled with people, so no one else could take shelter there. Star and I had no idea where we should go because we had been given no directions. It was an absolute nightmare.
What did you and Star do?
Since we couldn't take shelter in a pavilion, we decided the next best thing was to try to make it to our car, which was parked out by the northwest exit.
Your Honor, may I display previously entered Exhibit 1?
You may.
Can the court see Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Could you tell the court where you were going?
Star and I started running in the direction that the red arrow was pointing.
Did you both make it to your car?
No, we didn't.
Why not?
There were so many people and it was such a mess that I barely know what happened, but somehow Star fell and he was injured.
What happened next?
Since Star couldn't make it all the way to our car because of his injury, I decided that I could leave him under a tree where I thought he would be protected from the storm. And that way I could run and get the car to get it closer to the gate.
Could you show the court where this tree was?
On the map, the tree has an X by it that's surrounded by a yellow box. And there's a dotted line that shows the path that we took to get there.
What happened after you went to go get the car?
I ran as fast as I could to get the car. and I brought it close to the gate, then ran as fast as I could to get Star.
Did you make it to Star?
No, I didn't make it.
Why not?
That was when I saw him get struck by lightning.
Could you describe what you saw to the court?
The lightning struck the tree, and then it got Star. It was like holding a firecracker really close to your head and letting it go off. It was so loud, and I even felt the ground shake underneath my feet. And that was when I saw him lying there on the ground. That image still haunts me to this day.
What happened to your husband?
He had been struck by lightning, and not too long afterwards, he died.
Ms. Rhodes, did you at any point in time receive any information from a Trunias band representative about incoming weather or evacuation protocol?
No, never. Nobody ever told us anything. We had to fend for ourselves.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please do.
Hello, my name is Julianne Berry Stoltz. I'm so sorry for your loss, but there are a few areas of your testimony I would like to talk to you about today. I'd like to begin by discussing the events leading up to the concert. You and Star were celebrating your one-year wedding anniversary, correct?
Yes, that's right.
You were recreating your first date.
Yes, we were.
So you had a lot invested in the concert emotionally, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And for the show, you had bought lawn seats, correct?
Yes.
And these lawn seats cost $49 each.
Yes, that's right.
Money was tight for you and Star.
It was, yes.
So buying these tickets was a splurge for you.
Yes, it was definitely a splurge.
And you did not want to waste these tickets, correct?
No, we did not.
Because you did not want to flush $98 down the drain.
That's right.
So you were financially invested in attending this concert.
I believe so, yes.
You and Star were so excited about this concert that you made a point of arriving early to get good seats. Isn't that true?
Yes, that's right.
And as a result, you got some of the best lawn seats available.
We'd like to think so, yes.
Now, before you left for the concert, Star drank an entire bottle of wine by himself, correct?
He did.
And while waiting for the concert to start, Star had more alcohol.
Yes, I know that he bought another cocktail from a vendor's tent.
So at this point, it's safe to say that Star was pretty drunk?
I'm not sure if he was very drunk.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen?
Granted.
Let the record reflect I'm showing what has been previously marked as Exhibit 2 on my screen. Your Honor, pursuant to Stipulation 17, I move to admit Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Ms. Rhodes, let me show you an enlargement of Exhibit 2. So Exhibit 2 shows that you described Star as too drunk to make it to the car the night of the concert, correct?
Yes, at the time, that is what I told the EMTs.
Now, while I have Exhibit 2 on the screen, I would like to talk about Star's ankle injury. On direct, you testified that Star hurt his ankle and therefore couldn't make it to the car, correct?
Yes.
But Exhibit 2 doesn't mention any ankle injury, isn't that correct?
No, it does not. At the time that I spoke to the EMTs, my head was in a whirl, and that's what I told them at the time.
And you knew that they needed as much information as possible to take care of Star?
Yes, I know that.
And you told them that Star was too drunk to make it to the car and nothing about an ankle injury.
At the time, yes, that's what I decided to tell the AMTs.
Let the record reflect I'm no longer showing my screen. Around 7:30, half an hour before the concert was scheduled to start, you and Star were in the lawn area and saw ominous clouds in the distance, correct?
Yes, we saw some clouds way in the distance.
At this time, you did not leave to seek shelter,
No, we did not. We didn't see a reason to.
and you did not want to lose your good seats.
No, we didn't.
Now, 15 minutes later, you heard thunder, correct?
That's right.
At this same time, you saw lightning in the distance.
Yes, we did.
Some people around you even got up and left the lawn area.
Yes, just a few people here and there got up to leave, but there were still so many concert goers who were still there.
But you did not leave, you stayed.
Yes, we did. We still didn't see a reason to leave the concert venue.
You stayed because your emotional and financial investments clouded your judgment.
No, we stayed because nobody from the band told us that it was dangerous to be there.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
On cross-examination, you were asked about available weather notifications on that night. You said you did not leave because the band didn't come and say anything to the crowd. Why did this mean so much to you?
Well, you have to understand that the band Trenius was like heroes to me and Star. You know, heroes don't leave and abandon people. They save and protect them. We thought that if there was any real danger, somebody from the band would tell us that we needed to evacuate, but that never happened.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Does the plaintiff, do you rest your case?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
Defense may call their first witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Pat Towne to the stand.
Very good.
May I proceed?
Yes, you witness, raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed with the examination.
And before, just for your clarification, Your Honor, my name is Catherine Gertis, and I will be doing the direct examination of Pat Towne, played by Madeline Hellwig.
Very good, Ms. Curtis.
State your name for the court, spelling your last.
Pat Towne, Towne.
Tell the court a little about yourself.
I was born and raised in Queens, New York. Growing up in the city taught me three things: how to be tough, how to work hard, and how to be loyal. My life really changed on 9/11. I was in downtown Manhattan when the Twin Towers came down. After my city got here, I knew what I needed to do, so I joined the Army, served 2 tours in Afghanistan and intel and frontline combat positions, and I was honorably discharged in 2008.
What have you been doing since your discharge?
I started my own personal security company. I figured if I could keep a convoy safe in Kandahar, how hard could it be to keep a celebrity safe in the Upper East Side?
Do you still own your own company?
Not as my full-time job. It was a little tough finding clients, so I started working as a bouncer at an Irish dive bar. This is where I met Dylan Tintreach.
Who's Dylan Tintreach?
Dylan is the lead singer of the band Trenius. They go by the stage name Cluricon.
And what's your role in the band?
I was brought into the band as the security director back when it was forming. We moved from New York City to Chicago, and we've been together ever since. Band is like family.
I'd like to talk more about your job as the band's security director. Could you tell the court about that position?
I coordinate all the safety and security needs of the band. I'm basically a personal bodyguard.
What does being the band's personal bodyguard entail?
Trunious puts on a heck of a show. Sometimes fans can get a little aggressive, mix it up in the mosh pit, start fights with each other, and rush the stage. My main goal is to keep the band safe and to keep the fans under control during the concerts.
So you're responsible for keeping the band safe and the fans under control. Are you the only one responsible for taking security measures at Trunious concerts?
No, ma'am, that would be impossible.
Why is that impossible?
Each venue is unique and has its own different needs. That's why the specifics of fan safety is placed on the venue. My primary job is just to keep the band safe.
Do you coordinate with each venue on the specific security measures it's taking to protect its fans before Trunious performs?
Yes, ma'am. Prior to each concert, I do advanced planning with the venue manager.
I'd now like to talk about the concert in today's case. Could you tell the court about that show?
Yes, ma'am. It was scheduled for September 3rd at the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion at 2000 hours. Trunious was the headliner and there was no opening act scheduled.
Earlier, you testified to taking specific security measures with the venue before Trunious performs. Did you take those measures before the September 3rd show?
Yes, ma'am. Prior to the concert, I did advanced planning with the venue manager, Taylor Kowalczyk. We set up a chain of command to discuss any weather-related issues that might come up.
Could you tell the court about the details of that chain of command?
Taylor was the point person and would monitor the weather and then would relay that information onto D-Taze Hamilton, who was the next person in the chain. D-Taze was then supposed to relay that information to me, and then I would give the information to the band.
Let's talk about how that chain of command operated the night of Star Rhodes' death. Did everything go as planned?
No, ma'am, it did not.
Why not?
We had a weak link.
Who was the weak link?
D-Taze Hamilton. In the Army, we would say D-Taze turned the situation into a soup sandwich.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen?
Granted.
Let the record reflect I am now showing what has previously been marked and admitted into evidence as Exhibit 9. Ms. Towne, I'd first like to talk about what D-Taze did tell you the night of the concert. Could you tell the court what reports you received from her?
I didn't really receive a lot of reports on here, but D-Taze did come and talk to me about the weather at about 1700 hours and 1800 hours. D-Taze informed me that there were storm advisories in place, but that they were just advisories and that they would end well before the time of the concert.
Now let's move on to what D-Taze didn't tell you. Did she ever tell you about the 7:14 p.m. weather alert?
That would be no-go.
Did D-Taze ever tell you about the 7:37 p.m. weather alert?
No, ma'am.
Did D-Taze ever tell you about the 8:06 p.m. weather alert?
Negative.
Your Honor, let the record reflect I am no longer sharing my screen. Ms. Towne, what impact did D-Taze's failure to communicate have on the show?
We were unable to get the information necessary to decide whether or not to cancel the show. I know that Tory Rhodes is blaming the band for what happened that night, but I don't see how we were supposed to make a decision to cancel the concert when we didn't have any of the critical information needed to do so.
I'd now like to discuss the venue's role in what happened on September 3rd. You've been involved in security for more than 10 years. Was the venue prepared for this type of weather emergency?
No, ma'am. Before the concert, I surveyed the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion, and I was very concerned about the lack of signage, lack of a clear evacuation plan, and even the first aid station was poorly marked.
Did you tell the venue of your concerns?
Yes, I voiced my concerns with the venue manager, Taylor Kowalczyk. I was assured that everything was under control.
And did Taylor have everything under control?
No, ma'am, Taylor did not.
What happened once the storm hit?
I went outside and it was chaos. Fans were shoving each other, pushing each other, running to get cover. It was not an orderly evacuation at all.
In your opinion, Ms. Towne, what should have been done differently on September 3rd?
There are two things that I think should have been done differently on the night of September 3rd. One, DTs should have followed the chain of command. And two, the venue should have deployed a clear evacuation plan. Unfortunately, in my opinion, because these people had clouded judgment the night of the concert, Mr. Rose unfortunately lost his life.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination,
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
please do.
I want to start by talking about your role in Trunius's corporate structure. You are an employee of Trunius Incorporated, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I'm the security director.
On September 3rd, 2018, your job title was security director, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
For this concert in particular, you were also in charge of communication between the venue and the band, right?
If you are referring to the chain of command, then yes.
Now I want to talk about how Trunius chose to structure that line of communication. You knew Taylor Kowalczyk was in charge of monitoring the weather, true?
Yes, ma'am. Taylor was the point person and would monitor the weather.
You knew that weather information was to be used to decide whether to delay or cancel the concert, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So this was important information?
Yes, ma'am. The weather was important information.
You knew Taylor Kowalczyk was to give this important weather information to Hayes Hamilton, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's how the chain of command was set up.
And then Hayes Hamilton was to give this important weather information to the band, true?
Hayes Hamilton was supposed to report it to me. I am part of the band, and then I would directly report it to Cluricon.
Hamilton attempted to speak to Tintreach on the night of the concert, correct?
Yes, ma'am. She attempted to speak to Dylan directly.
Tintreach was in the dressing room at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
You did not allow Hamilton access to Tintreach at this time, did you?
I did not.
You didn't even let Hamilton into the dressing room?
No, ma'am. Dylan has suffered a head injury from a boating accident and needs lots of time to focus before concerts.
You made it very clear Hamilton was not to attempt to speak to Tintreach again before the concert, right?
Yes, I mean, Dylan has to take their time to focus before the concert.
Do you know what Hamilton was going to tell Tintreach at this time?
No, DJs refused to tell me what the information was.
You didn't bother to ask, did you?
DJs would not tell me what it was.
Now I want to talk about your motivations today. You're aware Trunius Incorporated is being sued, true?
Yes, ma'am.
You've been an employee of Trunius Incorporated for over 7 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, you consider Trunius to be like a family, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You would agree that you think your job is to have the band's back, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Ms. Gertis, do you have any redirect?
Just one question, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Ms. Towne, does being loyal to the band mean you would do anything for them?
No, I love them. They are like my family. If Dylan were in a burning building, yes, I am the first person running in there to get them. If Dylan were asking me to, say, lie in court, that's a no-go. That is a line I will not cross. I was in the Army and I was taught honor and integrity. And that still stands today.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. May call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Bernie Dorn to the stand.
You raise your right hand and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name. Oh, before I begin, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Julianne Berry Stoltz, and I will be directing Bernie Dorn, played by Johanna Koppelman.
Very good.
Please state your name for the court, spelling your last.
Dr. Bernie Dorn, D-O-H-R-N.
Tell the court a little about yourself, Dr. Dorn.
I was born in Stillwater, Oklahoma in 1975 during the 13th deadliest tornado in Oklahoma state history. My parents joked they traded everything they owned that day for me. I've been obsessed with the weather my whole life. Some say my passion borders on an illness, but I just tell them I'm under the weather for the weather.
And what is your educational background?
I have more degrees than a cold day in Iowa. I have a bachelor's in meteorology from the University of New York at Oswego, and both a master's and a PhD in atmospheric science from the University of Missouri.
What is your professional experience in this field?
I've worked as a lightning safety specialist for the National Weather Service. As well, I've had the privilege of making appearances on shows like the Today Show and the CBS Early Show. I was also designated a friend of education in the state of Iowa based off of my recommendations for weather safety.
As part of this impressive career, have you ever studied how people react during weather events?
Of course, a large part of knowing about the weather is knowing how people will react to it and figuring out the best ways to keep them safe.
Can you tell the court more about this?
Yes, I've spent a considerable amount of my career doing research on human behavior during severe weather events. In fact, the state of Iowa adopted my recommendations for increased weather safety in the schools throughout the state. I found one of the best ways to educate people through little catchy sayings and phrases.
Dr. Dorn, what is your current occupation?
I currently own a consulting business called The Weather Above Ground.
As part of this consulting business, do you ever testify in court?
Yes, a large part of my career as a consultant involves testifying in cases as an expert witness.
And is the information you just described summarized in your curriculum vitae?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen?
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing what has been previously marked as Exhibit 5. Dr. Dorn, do you agree that this is a fair and accurate copy of your curriculum vitae?
Yes, I do.
And is your curriculum vitae something that you regularly update throughout the course of your business?
Yes, I do.
I move to admit Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Let the record reflect that I am no longer sharing my screen. Dr. Dorn, how did you become involved in today's case?
I was hired by the band Trenius following a tragic weather-related death at one of their concerts.
What did Trenius hire you to do?
I was hired to investigate said weather-related death and offer my opinion as to its cause.
Have you reached an opinion as to the cause of this death?
Yes, I have.
And what steps did you take to reach this opinion?
I evaluated the weather forecast leading up to the night of the concert, as well as the safety precautions taken by all parties both before and during the storm, through reading the witness statements.
Now, before we get into the specific opinion regarding this case, I would like to talk about the art of forecasting the weather. Is it an exact science?
No. Weather forecasting is complex and not always accurate because the weather can be chaotic and unpredictable. The Earth's atmosphere is affected by many different factors and can react in many different ways.
So how far in advance can you accurately predict the weather?
Typically, forecasts become more dependable as they get closer to the date in question.
However, you can never predict the weather with 100% accuracy. That's what makes the weather so fascinating.
Given this unpredictable nature of the weather, are there steps that places like outdoor amphitheaters can take to protect their fans?
Yes, they should have a reliable weather monitoring system in place to track the weather both before and during an event, as well as an evacuation plan in place to ensure a quick and safe evacuation.
Are there steps individual attendees can take if they find themselves in the middle of a storm?
Yes, as I always say, when thunder roars, go indoors. Some people are calling that one the next stop, drop, and roll.
Now I would like to talk about the storm on September 3rd, 2018. Dr. Dorn, are you familiar with the weather forecasts and warnings issued for September 3rd, the days leading up to the concert, which have been previously marked as Exhibits 7 and 8?
Yes, I am.
Your Honor, pursuant to Stipulation 19, I move to admit Exhibits 7 and 8 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibits 7 and 8 are admitted.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen.
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I am showing Exhibit 7 on my screen. Dr. Dorn, what did the weather forecasts for September 3rd look like on August 27th?
The forecast for the 3rd indicated that thunderstorms are possible, meaning that it should have been on the radar for the venue.
Moving on to Exhibit 8, what did these forecasts look like on September 2nd?
The updated forecast indicated that there would be some scattered storms early in the day, and that would be clear and only cloudy in the evening.
Was it only clear and cloudy the evening of September 3rd?
No, a significant storm event took place.
Let the record reflect that I'm now showing Exhibit 9 on the screen. Can you please tell the court about this exhibit?
This is a series of National Weather Service alerts issued on September 3rd. At 3:56 p.m., the National Weather Service began tracking a weather event east of Des Moines.
Dr. Dorn, in your expert opinion, was this storm a foreseeable danger?
No. Prior to the concert, there were insufficient predictions of the severity of the storm that would warrant a cancellation.
Why do you say there were insufficient predictions?
Prior to the concert, it seemed that the storms would be through the area prior to the concert, having moved to the east. In fact, an earlier alert expired first at 6:15 p.m. and then later at 7:15 p.m. It was only at 7:37 p.m. that an alert advisory for thunderstorms with severe lightning was issued.
Let the record reflect that I'm no longer sharing my screen. Now I would like to talk about the venue. Was there an effective storm protocol in place?
They had some protocols in place, however, they were not utilized properly. Because the venue is a large outdoor area, people are at greater risk, and this necessitates advanced safety protocols.
How were the safety protocols not utilized properly on September 3rd?
There was a breakdown in communications as the venue did not make announcements, nor did they have the appropriate signage or staff to properly evacuate the location.
Why was this breakdown in communications a problem?
The venue should have been able to recognize the thunder and lightning and begin to take steps towards safety. However, in this scenario, their judgment must have been clouded because they failed to take these precautions.
So who would you say is responsible for ensuring a safe evacuation?
I would place this responsibility on the venue. The venue had the power to evacuate in case it was necessary.
Moving on, I would like to talk about the roads. Dr. Dorn, are you aware that Star Roads had a 0.14% blood alcohol content at the time of death?
Yes, I am.
Permission to share my screen.
Granted.
And Stipulation 11 provides that a 0.14% blood alcohol content causes gross motor impairment, lack of physical control, and major loss of balance. It also impairs reflexes and reaction time. Judgment and perception are impaired. How would these factors affect someone in a severe weather event?
It would cloud someone's judgment and could prevent them from seeking safety in a timely manner.
Let the record reflect that I'm no longer sharing my screen. How did the roads react to the storm the night of September 3rd?
For starters, the road saw thunder and lightning, but did not move for 20 minutes. As I always say, if you hear it, you should fear it. And if you see it, flee it. As well, they decided to seek shelter under a tree, which is extremely dangerous.
Why is seeking shelter under a tree extremely dangerous?
Trees meet the criteria for tip, which means tall, isolated, and pointy. These factors often predispose a lightning strike. In fact, being under a tree is the second leading cause of lightning casualties.
Thank you, Dr. Dorn. Your Honor, pursuant to jury instruction number 15, I move to admit Dr. Dorn as an expert witness.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination,
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
please do.
Hello, Dr. Dorn. My name is Britt Bowersox, and I'll be asking you a few questions today. You were not in Des Moines in September of 2018, were you?
No, I was not.
So you did not personally witness the weather conditions leading up to the death of Star Rhodes?
No, however, that is standard practice for an expert witness.
You are only here today because Trunius Incorporated has hired you, right?
Yes, I was hired by them.
You are only here today because Trunius Incorporated is paying you $20,000 to testify.
I do charge a flat fee. However, in no way would I allow that to cloud my judgment. I stick to the facts.
Now, I would like to discuss some things I think we can agree on. In the days leading up to the concert, there was a weather system in the area producing unusual and excessive lightning.
Yes, as I mentioned, the weather can be absolutely chaotic and unpredictable.
On the night of the concert, an alert advisory was issued at 7:37 p.m. for thunderstorms and lightning.
Yes, that is correct.
And this was 23 minutes before the start of the concert, right?
Yes, it was.
At that time and place, it would have been your recommendation to delay or cancel the concert, true?
That is my personal recommendation. However, I can understand how someone who does not have the same expertise or knowledge could come to a different conclusion.
Is that a yes to my question? It would have been your recommendation to delay or cancel the concert at that time on that night.
Yes.
Now, I would like to discuss the challenge of educating people about lightning safety. You give talks about lightning to service groups.
Yes, I absolutely love it.
You give talks about lightning in classrooms.
Yes, I do.
And you also give talks about lightning on television.
Yes, I do.
You give all of these talks because there are many myths out there about lightning, aren't there?
Yes, there are many common misconceptions.
And you would agree that there has not been enough weather safety education in our schools?
Of course, I always want to continue to educate people, and I continually advocate for that.
That's a yes to my question. You would agree there has not been enough weather safety education in our schools?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, witness may step down and you may call your third and final witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Dylan Tintreach to the stand.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Counsel, proceed.
Thank you. Before I begin, I'd like to reintroduce myself. My name is Harper Deniston, and I'll be directing Callie Stanier. May I proceed?
Please do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the court, spelling the last.
Hi, my name's Dylan Tintreach, Tintreach.
Tell the court a bit about yourself.
So I'm from Ireland, as you can probably tell, but I moved over here to the States in 2012 to try to make it as a singer-songwriter and performer. And I am currently the lead singer for the band Trunius. We're a Celtic rock band. And my stage name is Cluricon, which is a name I took to honor my family roots and traditions.
How did you come to know Pat Towne?
Oh, Pat and I go way back. I met her when I was a wee singer-songwriter first starting out in New York City. She was a bouncer at the time, and she helped me find my place in the music scene, she did.
How did your band Trunnius form?
So Pat had some business, as I recall, at a recording studio in Chicago, and she convinced me and a couple of other Irish musicians to get a group together and perform a demo record. And it turned out so well that we decided to stick together. And that's how Trunnius formed.
And how did you come to know DT's Hamilton?
I met DT's out in Chicago when Trunnius was getting its start out there. DT's is a pretty high profile band promoter, and he helped us out by introducing us to Kristen Schaefer. She is a right cracker Irish drummer, she is. She is such a valuable member of our band and gives us those kicking, driving rhythms that really make us who we are.
Has your band been successful?
I would say it has. We've performed many sold out shows and we've been nominated for a Grammy.
The life of a rock star sounds very glamorous. Has that been your experience?
I'd have to disagree with you on that one there, Miss Daniston.
What do you mean by that?
So because of all the publicity, the cameras and such, there's often no privacy in life's more personal moments.
I know you had a boating accident in 2016. Is that what you're referring to?
Aye, it is. I was injured in a boating accident in October of 2016, and it left me with very painful injuries, and the treatment for that left me with an opioid addiction.
How bad did your addiction get?
I'm not proud of it, but it got to the point where I was cheating and lying and stealing, doing anything I could to get my hands on drugs. And I ended up pleading guilty to prescription drug fraud.
Is that a felony?
Aye, it is.
What happened then?
So the first time I went to rehab, it was ordered by the court, and I didn't think I committed to it fully, because after that I ended up overdosing, which is another part of my life that I'm really not proud of, but it's something that I have to face. And after that, I checked myself into a rehab facility for the second time. I really committed to it, and I'm proud to say that I've been clean ever since then.
Thank you for your candidness on the issue. I'd now like to talk more about how the business of the band worked. So would you just show up to a city and play a gig?
Oh no, there's much more to it than that.
Can you tell the court more about that?
Aye, so we hired Pat Towne. We did hire Pat Towne. We hired DT's as our promoter, and he does all the contract negotiations, scheduling, booking, stuff of that sort.
Do you have a security manager? What's her role?
Aye, Pat Towne, I mentioned her earlier. She is in charge of security for us and our equipment.
And are you ever involved in the drafting of the SOP contract?
No, that is the job we hired DT's to do.
I'd now like to move on and ask you some questions about the specific concert on September 3rd, 2018 at the SOP. Please detail what happened that night.
Aye, so we arrived, did our sound check, finished setting up at about 2:30, and then we went to our dressing rooms.
So you were in your dressing rooms prior to the concert?
I have a very involved and intense meditation ritual that I do before every performance. And I was in my dressing room doing that up until 8 p.m. that night.
Was anything ever communicated to you regarding the possibility for dangerous weather conditions?
No, not after 7:15 p.m. that night.
What happened after that?
Well, at 8 p.m. we never got to go out on stage because Pat came and told us that there was dangerous weather.
So what did you do?
We never ended up performing that night. I'm still devastated. After the concert, we heard of the tragic death of one of our fans, of Star Rhodes, and our deepest sympathies go out to her family or to his family and to his partner. I can't believe that happened. And I wish that I had been given the critical information so that I could have considered making the decision to delay or cancel. I just didn't have the information at the time.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please do.
You called Trenius a band, true?
Trenius is my band.
Well, Trenius is actually a corporation, right?
I don't really have the mind for all the business stuff. That's what I hired DTs to do. So he decided that we should become a corporation, and I wasn't sure how to do that, but he took charge on that one.
Trenius is a for-profit corporation, that is, right?
I guess that's the legal term for it. I
Is
just
that a
consider it
yes?
my music group.
Is that a yes? Trenius is a for-profit corporation.
I guess so.
Let's move on to the live performance agreement between the SOP and Trenius. Exhibit 4. Your Honor, may I screen share Exhibit 4?
You may.
Is the court able to see Exhibit 4?
Yes.
You read and signed Exhibit 4, true?
I did.
And you did not ask for clarification on any of the terms in this contract, true?
No, DTs and it is our standard business practice that our contracts are very similar and often the same between each concert. So I assumed that I understood every part of the contract.
Let's turn to paragraph 8 of Exhibit 4. Please read along silently as I read aloud. Band reserves the right to cancel the performance or to delay the performance. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Now, do you see where it says in its sole discretion?
In its sole discretion, but there are other parts of this contract that also should say that the SOP has responsibility to cancel. So it is not our sole responsibility to cancel.
Is that a yes? You see where it states in its sole discretion.
It does say those words right there in the contract, but I think that we need to discuss more the meaning of them.
Now let's look at paragraph 2 of Exhibit 4. Do you see where it states, this contract may not be canceled by the SOP 30 days prior to the performance date? Did I read that correct? Do you see where it says that?
That is a standard practice that DTs negotiates for every concert that we do.
Thank you. Let's move on to what you knew prior to the SOP concert. Trenius chose to do a concert at the SOP, true?
We did.
And Trenius Incorporated wanted its fans to attend, right?
We want fans to attend every concert that we do.
Trenius Incorporated knew that this concert would be at an outdoor venue, right? Trenius also knew that weather is an inescapable concern at an outdoor venue, right?
It is something that you have to pay attention to.
So, if bad weather were to arise, Trenius knew that thousands of fans could be outside on the lawn, right?
That is what performing at an outdoor concert means.
Let's move on to the weather chain of command. There are 4 links in this chain, right? The first being Taylor Kowalczyk, the SOP representative. The second being Hayes Hamilton, Trenius's concert promoter. Trenius Incorporated chose to hire Hayes Hamilton, true?
We did. We had worked together many years in the past, and I did have trust in him. I do not anymore, but I did.
The third link in this chain was Pat Towne, true? Trenius Incorporated also chose to hire Pat Towne, right?
Pat Towne is a cherished employee of our band. We've worked together for many years.
And the fourth link in this chain was you, correct?
That's not quite right. The band Trunius, I guess, Details had to teach me a little bit about this, but we're a corporation, so we do, every member of the band is part of the brand in part of the corporation, and the band Trunius is the last in the chain of command.
So that's a yes. Your band was the last in the chain of command, right?
The band Trunius is the last in the chain of command.
So we can agree that 3 out of the 4 links in this weather chain of command were hired by Trunius Incorporated, right?
2 were hired employees, and 3
Well, you
and
hired
was the band itself.
Is that a yes? 3 out of 4 members of this chain of command were hired by Trunius Incorporated.
2 out of 4 were hired members, and the third was the band itself.
Well, you and the band are paid by Trunius Incorporated, right?
Again, I don't know how the corporation works. I just write the songs.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Ms. Dennison, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, just one question. Why didn't you cancel the concert on September 3rd?
I didn't have the weather information that I needed to cancel. It's my understanding that the chain of command failed, and details failed.
Objection, Your Honor, relevant. This witness's opinion on whether or not the chain of command failed is not probative to the aspect of negligence in this case.
Dennison, a response?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that failure in the chain of command is very clearly negligent because they did not follow the necessary protocol to cancel the concert.
I'll overrule the relevance objection. You may proceed with the answer.
Details did not pass on weather information to us. I don't know what she was thinking at the time, but her judgment was definitely clouded.
Thank you. No further questions. The defense rests.
Good. Are the plaintiff's counsel ready for closing statement, closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, proceed when you're ready.
Can the court see my shared screen?
With power comes responsibility.
Yes, Your Honor.
I can see it.
Before I begin, I'd like to remind the court that we have reserved all remaining time for rebuttal. May it please the court, counsel, Trunius is not just a band. It is a corporation that invited thousands of its fans to an outdoor concert, a corporation that negotiated a contract that gave Trunius the power of sole discretion on the question of cancellation or postponement. With that power came responsibility, a responsibility to act reasonably when dangerous weather threatened its fans. We are here today because Trunius Incorporated failed in its responsibility, and one of its fans paid the ultimate price. We told you at the beginning of today's trial, we would prove by the preponderance of the evidence, both negligence and proximate cause. We have met that burden. We proved Trunius Incorporated was negligent by answering these 4 questions today. Let's talk about how we answered each of these questions today. 1, Did Trunius Incorporated have a duty to cancel or postpone the concert due to dangerous weather? Of course it did. The fans were there that night because Trunius Incorporated invited them. Basic decency required the band to look out for the individuals it invited. Moreover, Trunius had a contractual duty. This is Exhibit 4, the live performance agreement between the Schnur Outdoor Pavilion and Trunius Incorporated. Paragraph 2 clearly states that the SOP cannot cancel without the consent of the band. Paragraph 8 clearly states that Trunius Incorporated had sole discretion to cancel or postpone the concert. Your Honor, it wasn't joint discretion, it was sole discretion. Don't let Trunius Incorporated run away from its moral and contractual duty. 2, did Trunius Incorporated have knowledge of dangerous weather? Of course it did. A corporation acts through its representatives. 3 out of the 4 links that in the weather information chain of command that we heard so much about today were Trunius corporate representatives. Trunius link number 1 was Hayes Hamilton. Trunius Incorporated chose Hayes Hamilton when it hired her as its promoter. Hayes Hamilton knew about the bad weather the week before the concert. Hayes Hamilton knew about the severe weather alerts on the night of the concert. Trunius link number 2 was Pat Towne. Trunius Incorporated chose Pat Towne when it hired her as its security director. Hamilton told Towne about the severe weather alerts on the night of the concert, just like Trunius wanted. Towne stopped Hamilton from speaking directly to Tintreach, just like Trunius wanted. Trunius link number 3 is Dylan Tintreach. Trunius Incorporated chose its lead singer, Dylan Tintreach, to be the final link in the weather information chain of command. Tintreach is claiming no knowledge of the 7:37 p.m. intense lightning alert. But if the message didn't get through, Trunius only has itself to blame. The information was inside Trunius's corporate structure. Any flaws in that structure are solely the responsibility of the band. 3, did Trunius Incorporated act reasonably in light of that knowledge? Of course not. Everyone knows lightning can be dangerous. The only reasonable thing to do when intense lightning is heading towards thousands of people sitting outside is to cancel or postpone the concert. Instead, Trunius Incorporated left its fans in the lawn seats as sitting ducks, far from shelter and even farther from their vehicles. Setting up a corporate structure that cares more about a singer's meditation time than the lives of thousands of its fans is the definition of unreasonable corporate indifference. 4, was Trunius Incorporated's unreasonable behavior a proximate cause of Star Road's death? Yes. The cause reveals itself when we work backwards. Star Rhodes was killed after being struck by lightning. Star was struck by lightning because he was caught outside in a lightning storm. Star was outside because he was there to see Trunius perform. And Star was only outside when the storm rolled in because Trunius failed in its moral and contractual duty to cancel or postpone the concert. With power comes responsibility. Trunius Incorporated had power. It used its power to bring thousands of people to an outdoor concert. It then failed those people by not exercising its moral and contractual responsibility to cancel or postpone the concert. Trunius's failure caused Star Road's death. That is why we ask that you find Trunius Incorporated liable. Thank you.
Let's hear the defense counsel closing argument.
Your Honor, before I begin, for your clarification, my name is Shoshana Hemley, and I would also like to double check that Your Honor can see both the demonstrative and me equally.
Clouded judgment with the scales of judgment, and I can see you as well.
May I proceed?
Please do.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, may it please the court. Today, you heard of the tragic story of the death of Star Rhodes, a star whose life burnt out before it could truly begin. The plaintiff argues that my client, the band Trunius, is responsible for this tragedy. But what they fail to see is that the events of September 3rd were a perfect storm, brought together by the actions of D-Taze Hamilton, Taylor Kowalczyk, and Star and Tory Rhodes, all of whom had clouded judgment. The plaintiff bears the burden of proof by a preponderance of the evidence that my client had a duty, breached that duty, and that breach caused the death of Star Rhodes. Essentially, they must prove that my client was negligent in failing to cancel the concert. They have failed to prove this. Jury instruction 5 provides that negligence is the failure to use reasonable care. Now, you heard that this show took place at the end of the summer tour. D-Taze, an independent contractor who is a separate entity from the band, was tired and exhausted. But if the show was canceled, they would have had to come back to Des Moines to play another show with the band. Knowing this, she willingly withheld essential information regarding the weather from Towne and the band. In fact, she even testified today, if it were my call, I would play come rain or shine. And Taylor Kowalczyk testified that he believed that D-Taze was filtering the information he gave her when talking to the band. Jury instruction 6 provides that reasonable care is the care any reasonably careful or ordinarily prudent person would use under the same or similar circumstances. Your Honor, the plaintiff alleges one cause of action against the defendant today, that the defendant acted negligently. However, as you heard, Dylan Tintreach had no information regarding the severity of the weather until it was too late. Any reasonably careful person in Dylan's shoes would have acted the same, because without the necessary information regarding the weather withheld by D-Taze and Taylor, no one would have canceled the concert. Because reasonable care does not require a person to guard against or foresee that which is unusual or unlikely to occur. Now, you heard that D-Taze provided information regarding the weather to Pat Towne earlier in the day. But you also heard Dr. Dorn testify that at this point, there was insufficient information in order to cancel. In fact, Exhibit 8, the weather forecast for September 3rd, predicted it to be only clear and cloudy at the time of the show. It wasn't until later that the severity of the weather became apparent. In fact, Exhibit 9, the National Weather Service alerts, established that the advisories for thunder and lightning weren't issued until 7:37 p.m. But Dylan was never given this information. And when D-Taze knowingly withheld essential information regarding the weather from the band, she exhibited clouded judgment. Now, D-Taze denied withholding information from the court today. There are many reasons why she would come to court and lie. She believes she was wrongly fired and is being made a scapegoat. In fact, she is currently suing Trunius and testified today that there is bad blood between her and the band. She is angry, and she is letting that anger cloud her judgment once again. D-Taze is not to be trusted. But D-Taze isn't the only one who exhibited clouded judgment that day. Taylor Kowalczyk never directly told the band of his concerns, and he never canceled the show himself. As general manager, he had the power to cancel according to the contract at any point. However, instead, knowing about the severity of the weather and knowing that the show should have been canceled, he went out on stage and never informed the fans about the weather. He didn't want to cancel because he didn't want to have to pay the $285,000 performance fee. Taylor Kowalczyk let money, cloud his judgment. Not only did Taylor not cancel, but when the time for an evacuation was near, he was not prepared. Dr. Dorn testified that as general manager, he should have been able to recognize the thunder and the lightning and begun to take steps towards a safe evacuation. But he did not. He didn't use the jumbotrons or the public address system, nor did he inform the fans or prepare his staff. When the time for a cancellation had passed, he was not prepared for an evacuation. Finally, both Starr and Tory Rhodes exhibited clouded judgment that day. They were emotionally and financially invested in this concert. Even when they saw other concertgoers leaving and storm clouds in the distance, they made the negligent decision to stay in their seats. Now, Tory was once again negligent when she decided to put Starr under a tree during a lightning storm. This is not a choice a reasonably careful or ordinarily prudent person would make. Now, Starr Rhodes was intoxicated. We know that pursuant to Stipulation 11, Starr had a 0.14 BAC, which results in gross motor impairment, major loss of balance, lack of physical control, and impairs reflexes and reaction time. Judgment and perception are impaired. Starr's decision to drink to that point of intoxication resulted in his clouded judgment and his inability to leave the venue in a safe and timely manner. Now, this case must be decided according to Iowa law of comparative fault. Jury instruction 3 provides that first you must determine if the plaintiff, defendant, decedent, and non-parties, DTAs, jams, and SOP are at fault, and if this fault was the proximate cause of death. In this case, the decedent, plaintiff, and non-parties SOP and DTAs are all at fault. Jury instruction 7 provides that proximate cause is if the injury is the natural and probable consequence of an act or omission. The natural and probable consequence of Taylor Kowalsk's lack of an evacuation plan, Starr Rhodes' intoxication, and Tory's decision to put Starr under a tree during a lightning storm was Starr's death. These actions and these actions alone were the proximate cause of Starr Rhodes' death. This has nothing to do with a decision to cancel or not cancel a show, nor does it have to do with Dylan or the band. Jury instruction 3 also provides that if you find the defendant not at fault, then you must return a verdict of not liable. Now, the plaintiff will have one final chance to stand up and argue in front of the court today. They may argue that it was in fact the band who exhibited clouded judgment.
So JJ's going to be on here a little bit, so I mean.
The band would not have exhibited clouded judgment.
It's a live
state
mock trials competition.
In the first place. Yes, Your Honor, with power does come responsibility, because DTAs Hamilton had the power and responsibility to inform the band.
This isn't JJ,
had
but
the power and the responsibility to cancel and evacuate. And the Rhodes had the power and the responsibility the moment that they felt they were in danger of the storm. Your Honor, what happened on September 3rd was an awful tragedy. But you cannot let your own emotions cloud your judgment here today. Because when you look at the evidence presented, you will find that the defendant is not negligent. We ask that you apply the law and the facts to this case and return a verdict of not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Semiroth, I believe you have a minute 20 left.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please do.
The defense is here, and they're trying to cloud your judgment. Don't blame us, blame the fans who bought the tickets and drank the alcohol. Your Honor, it was a concert. Starr Rhodes had a designated driver. He was allowed to have a little bit of fun and not fear for his life. Trunius Incorporated had the power to stay behind, not out in the storm, in their safe dressing room, and shut out the weather warnings. The Rhodeses did not. The Rhodeses did not have the power of sole discretion under the contract. Trunius did. The Rhodeses did not have a Doppler radar right next door. They did not have the opportunity to access as much weather information as Trunius did. And yet, Trunya still failed to make the right call and call off the concert. That is why we ask that you find Trunnius liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. The case is now submitted, and I'd invite the panel, the judges, to join us now for a recap. All right. I'd like to begin by congratulating both teams. You did an outstanding job. It was really fun for me to watch. Really, you could tell you were well prepared. I thought it was good use of themes, good use of the exhibits and instructions and documents and stipulation. Direct, let the witness tell the story. Cross, generally kept good, tight control. Openings were excellent. Closings were excellent. I really thought you did both sides did an outstanding job. Thank you for doing that. Time permitting, I'd invite my colleagues who did the actual scoring and judging to weigh in with any feedback. I know why you teams both had to try this case this morning, and you had to get to the final. You've had a busy day. Trial work is hard work. I don't know how many of you may go on to become lawyers, but you're off to a great start. And regardless of your chosen path in life, I think a lot of success depends on preparation, collaboration, learning, and teamwork. And you've had great experience. So I'm very grateful on behalf of the Iowa Supreme Court to thank you for your participation, and to thank Mr. Wheeler and the ISBA for conducting the mock trial program, and all the generous time donated by your coaches, support from your parents and family, and my fellow judges and ISBA leaders today. And I invite, I don't know how much time we're allowed for this, but I'd invite any feedback from them as well.
Go ahead, Judge Greer.
There.
You all did an excellent job. It was fun to watch. A lot of us have judged a number of these, and I think this was one of my favorites so far. And I would tell you that I love the plaintiff incorporating the theme throughout from the beginning to the end of the case. I thought that was well done. All the attorneys did an excellent job on the plaintiff's side, and the witnesses did as well. Having said that, I thought that the defense did a really nice job taking the facts and using the law. And I think that's really helpful when you're judging a case. And I also felt that the defense witnesses had just a really great role playing. Maybe it helped that your witnesses had the accents and those things like that, as opposed to the plaintiff's witnesses. There was really a lovely role-playing theatrics going on the defense side that I thought was just tremendous. So congrats to all of you. It was just really fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you, Justice Waterman. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen a closer heat. I've been judging mock trial for a long, long time, and I thought we're just exceptional. So first of all, obviously, congratulations for even making it this far, but then the performance here in the finals was just outstanding. I was impressed. One thing that really struck me is my observation over the years doing this is I think teams tend to over-object. I think in part just to show that they know how to object and kind of the exercise of doing the objections, which I get. But I really thought here that this was one of the first times I thought that didn't happen when I've watched a competition. I thought that was really impressive. The fact that there were a limited number of objections, which means two things. First of all, that the people asking the questions knew enough to keep it within the boundaries, and the side defending the questioning, the cross examiner, or vice versa, obviously if you're on cross, but of recognizing that these are within the bounds of how we're supposed to play the game. So that I thought that was impressive as well. I'd echo Judge Greer's comments. It might be because the defense witnesses, just their story lends itself more to more role playing than the plaintiff's witnesses. So maybe they're more fun witnesses to do. But I really got a kick out of the defense witnesses. I thought that was a real treat. Everybody did just a fantastic job with that. I found myself really kind of getting sucked in with the accents and not just the accents, but the terminology and the the body language and the attitude and everything. I thought was just was impressive. So but all the way across the board, I thought both closing arguments were fantastic. I thought both closers had tremendous spirit and kind of spunk and passion for what they're doing, and all the way through the whole thing. I can't say enough how impressed I was by both sides. So thank you for the opportunity to get to see that. It was a real treat.
I'll just make a couple quick comments. I agree with everything that's been said by Judge Greer and Judge Allers. The thing that struck me, one of the things that struck me was your development of the theme and opening, and sticking to the theme in your questioning of all the witnesses, and then bringing it all back together in the closing. It was excellent. And I just want to finish by telling you it's as good as I've ever seen by experienced lawyers in a courtroom. So I encourage you to continue. Thanks for taking part in this. I hope you've gotten as much out of it as we've gotten out of it. So keep up the good work, guys.
This is Dave Dutton. I'm not. You can't see me because I know how to turn on a computer, but after that I'm lost. I'm probably the only one here who has actually tried a lightning case, and I know how difficult it is because I was the defense lawyer, and we were defending one of the grain elevators on the Mississippi, and a lightning storm came and shot a thunderbolt down through the grain elevator into the pit underneath the scales, and it lifted a semi 10 feet up in the air and dropped it. And the driver was seriously injured. And I tried that case trying to use the act of God defense. And unfortunately, we lost on that case. We won on appeal to the Iowa Supreme Court, so we got to retry it again. And I was smart enough after that experience to settle the case and not go through that agony again. So you were dealt a very interesting and a very difficult case in terms of both the presentation that you made on the plaintiff side and the defense side. And I thought both sides did an excellent job of telling the story, because that's what trial work is all about. It's trying to tell a better story than the other side's story that they tell. And if you think of yourself as a storyteller, I think you will really get into the characters and to all of the involvement and back and forth that goes on in a situation like this. But my hat's off to you. I thought you were excellent. And again, I can't believe that you are not lawyers who have been in the practice a number of years. So nice work. Keep it up. Hope to see you in the bar soon.
I think both teams did an excellent job. I have been involved in Iowa mock trial in one way or another as either a competitor or a coach or a judge for over half my life. And I am confident that this is the closest round I have ever seen. So just congratulations to both teams for getting here. Regardless if you want to be an attorney or not, later in life. This competition will serve you well in terms of public speaking, persuasive speaking and writing, as well as overall just giving a great presentation. So you can be proud of yourselves because this was pretty incredible. My only feedback, and I give it to every round I ever judge, is moving forward, just be confident and be respectful. When you are loud and confident, a lot of times you can fake it till you make it, and people tend to believe you, which serves well in mock trial, but as well as law practice. But it can serve well in other situations as well. And then both teams today were very respectful of one another, respectful of the court, and just being respectful in every circumstance, especially in law practice, is very important. You guys did a great job. Please take time to thank your coaches and your parents. They've probably sat through this trial more than they wish, but for you to get here, you needed a lot of support. So please just take time to thank them. But this was an incredible round, and it was truly a pleasure judging this round. Good job, everyone.
At least this year, they got to observe the trial over and over again in comfortable surroundings, perhaps with a beverage, maybe even with a basketball game on a different screen. So it's a little more comfortable. But there's nothing like being in the same room with you all and sending those positive vibes your way. We made it. we were able to survive this virtual odyssey, and we got to the last day. And the fact that you made it to the last day is an amazing accomplishment, not just for tech reasons, but for the level of competition. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any of the trials. I had my hands full through most of the organization and logistics. Lauren, however, got to see this trial and was recording it. So perhaps I get to have a beverage myself later and watch all the things that I missed. I want to congratulate again all four teams that made it to today, both teams that made it to the state finals. Before I announce the champion, it's a little more intimate setting, so I want to be able to have, as Ms. Cuellar mentioned, I do want to recognize the coaches. All along it's been we focused on the students as well. We should, but we really should pay some attention to the folks that helped you to get here as well. So I'd like to see if there are coaches who are here, if they would go ahead and light themselves up so that we can recognize them for their efforts as well. And I'm going to use the little reaction thingy on mine to do the clapping and the horn blowing. All right. Usually I would go on with some pithy comments, but this is a new world with virtual mock trial. And so you're probably thinking we ought to do it virtually all the time because that way he shuts up. So what we're after is this thing here, which is a little more portable than those big trophies that you actually get when we're in person. A little more portable, a little more breakable. And in addition to the trophy and the bragging rights, you also get to represent the state of Iowa at the national competition. Unfortunately, also held virtually, so you get to travel all the way to your hometown. Although it will be hosted through the good graces of the Indiana State Bar Foundation, and the host city is actually in southern Indiana, in Evansville, Indiana. And I think when you find the case on April 1st, it will have a little bit of southern Indiana, Evansville flavor. All right. In the 2021 Iowa High School Mock Trial State Championship trial, the plaintiff was represented by team code XDM from Robbins Mock Trial. The defense was represented by team code OTH, of Iowa City High School. The team receiving the most judge ballots and named the state champion for 2021. Congratulations to Team OTH from Iowa City High School. Wonderful job from Iowa City High. Wonderful job from Robin's mock trial. I will have trophies for you sent in the mail soon. You will also get heaped accolades. We're going to send out the press release. I can't think of a better way to end this virtual mock trial than by congratulating all of you again for saying yes. You had the opportunity to opt out, and no one would have thought anything different because it's been a really weird year. But you said yes, and you endured not only the complexities of a weird case, but all this virtual stuff and all the technology issues. And you didn't just reach, you went above and beyond. My faith in Iowa high school students is reaffirmed every year at this event. You just knock my socks off. And I appreciate all that you do and the time and effort you put into this program. For those of you who are seniors, and I know that one team is pretty much entirely seniors, the other one may have a good number of seniors as well. Thank you for taking time out of your senior year to do this, and for all the years you've spent over the past few years involved in Iowa mock trial. For those of you who are underclassmen, I encourage you to come back, and I really want to see you in person next year so that I can feel the positive energy and see the excitement that you exude. So congratulations to Iowa City, this year's state champion. Congratulations to Robbins, this year's state runner-up. Tremendous job. Look for ballots and comments from the judges coming back to you probably on Monday, because I think I'm going to go and sleep a little bit for a couple of days. But then we will get things to you. Iowa City coaches, look for an email from me. We need to set up a time to Zoom so we can talk about the intricacies of a virtual national competition as well. But again, congratulations to you all. Thank you so much to Justice Waterman for being the presiding judge today, for Ms. Cuellar, for Judge Allers, for Judge Greer, for Mr. Schnurr, and Mr. Dutton to serve as a fantastic championship panel. I can't think of a better panel that we could have put together for this year's trial. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for having us.
Nice job, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone. Great job.
Thank you, judges.
Thank you.
Well done, everybody.
Lauren, you can stop the recording now.